Trinidad is made up of the indigenous people are almost all disappeared.
Right.
Because, like so many islands, Trinidad was under the French, the Spanish, the British, and when it was a British colony, they had slaves working all over the Caribbean on the sugar plantation.
Right.
But when slaves were emancipated, when they got their freedom, they still needed labor. So they tried, different, from Madeira, they tried people from China, because the Africans didn't want to work as slaves anymore. Who could blame them? And then they imported people from India. My grandparents came from India to work on the plantations. And they were treated as badly, and in some cases even worse than slaves. It must have been really hard, because they were all promised after 5 years that they'd get the money, they'd be able to go back to India.
Oh, right, so they wanted to just earn money and go back.
Go back,
right.
That was the idea. But then the British government decided that it was, they didn't want to spend the money on sending these people back. They'd be more useful if they stayed. My grandfather, he scrimped and saved and was able to buy a plot of land. They were offered some land, what was called crown land, quite cheaply. So he and 2 brothers bought land just, together. So it was quite a sizable place. And they built houses, self-help houses. My grandfather, or my grandmother, they couldn't speak a word of English. I don't know how they survived, but it caused problems, because when the slaves were brought over, what they'd done is they chose people from different tribes, different villages, so they wouldn't communicate easily with each other, and therefore there wouldn't be any rebellion, which is what they thought. Right. It didn't work out that way, because they were human beings and ingenious, and they wanted their freedom, because they were really treated. Torture was the order of the day. They wanted to make, most of them became Christians, because that was the other hidden agenda, that they were savages and they should become Christians. So they were Christians, and then when the Indians were imported, they were allowed to keep their dress, because they dressed differently. They were allowed to keep their language, and they were allowed to keep their religion. Maybe it was a way of getting them to come. Right. But they were peasants. They couldn't read and write. They had no idea of the distance. They thought in a day they'll be arriving where they said they would arrive. I've seen a ship, the log of a ship, and so many of them died. There's a famous picture of the slave ships where they were like sardines. Yeah, I can imagine. And it wasn't much better for the Indians, so a lot of them died on the journey. I mean, it was really, really horrible. But they decided that they wanted to have a better life, and of course there was marriage, and people settled down, and then suddenly India was like a million miles away. My grandfather did go back.
He did go back?
He went back because he wanted musical instruments. He went back and he brought back musical instruments from India, and by this time he was doing quite well, with growing cocoa and coffee, and he just loved music. And at that time, you had traveling musicians. They would go from village to village and sing. And my grandfather had like an outhouse he used to dry the cocoa, and at the bottom, you know, it was livable. There was a little kitchen, and he would invite these musicians to come, and they would play, and he would invite all the villagers to come, and he would feed them all. You come, you get fed. When he died penniless, but he enjoyed his life. I thought that was really incredible. I mean, who cared about the money? There must have been about 3 or 4 when he died. So I'm really
Vague memories.
they're just vague memories of this man in his Indian dress, you know.
Well,
But
that sounds amazing.
Just a really kid. Now my father was he was a very good artist, and both of my mother and father could play Indian instruments. I rebelled against everything Indian because they wanted, even though the Indians were allowed to keep all this, their culture and religion. Religion was a bit of a bugbear because they wanted the Indians to convert to Christianity.
Right.
So what they did is they set up schools called Canadian Mission Indian schools, run by Canadian missionaries. And I went to such a school, and I remember, you know, that they would, after school, they would have these little felt figures, and they would tell stories from the Bible. And they would always end up by saying to us, "You lot were not Christians, you're heathens. And if you die without becoming a Christian, you'll burn in hellfire."
They were saying that to little children.
Little children.
That's horrible.
And I was really worried about this, and I told my father, and my father said, "Look, you're too young to make a decision. You can be anything you want, any religion you want once you reach about 11. I wouldn't stop you if you want to become a Christian, but you're too young to become anything."
Definitely. It's really bad that they were trying to enforce that on little kids.
So, you know, I've just got this thing about, you know, when I see people touting the Bible in the street, I could be very offensive. Because, you know...
You don't need to shove it in people's faces.
But, I mean, my father, he loved all religions. If they were having any kind of ceremony, he would invite people of all religions.